As more and more witnesses line up with claims about unidentified flying objects, World in Action reports from America. There, the government is backing scientists in a growing official concern. The Gallup poll reports that no less than 5 million Americans believe they've seen an unidentified flying object. Another 50 million say they believe UFOs exist. Witnesses include people who have every reason to be telling the truth. People like Bill Powell, an ex-airline pilot of 40 years' experience.
This is the aircraft that I was flying at the time I saw this so-called UFO. It was discus appearing. It had a slight raised dome on top of it. The dome part was, close as I can describe it, it was like a porcelain white. The edge, or the rim, was a very bright red, which was very similar to what we call day-glow red, the type of color they put on the wingtips of aircraft for easier identification. It was completely smooth. There was no projections or portholes or anything of that nature.
You know,
Housewife Jean May saw one too.
And all of a sudden the white star over there got really bright, you know, a really brilliant white, and it lit up the whole field. You could see everything. And it just started coming real slow right across over our heads, and they were looking at it, you know, and I mean, you know, saying, I don't believe what I'm seeing, you know, and the other one was saying, well, I believe it, I think, you know. Nobody knew what to say. Everyone would just stand there just looking at it. Nobody was saying a thing after that. And it just kept right on going, and it just went, and that was it. And there was nothing after that.
Were you scared while it went across?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of, you know, didn't know what to do. You know, we just standing there. We didn't know whether to run to the house or to just to hide. Or, I don't know. It's kind of scary.
Does it make you mad at all that people, maybe some people don't believe you?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, we know what we saw, and they don't, so they can't say we didn't see it. I mean, we know what we saw. And
we know what we saw is what hundreds of Americans are saying who saw UFOs just this last year all across the United States. Dr. James McDonald, professor of atmospheric physics at the University of Arizona, is one scientist who believes them. In the midst of much professional disbelief, he is a respected scientist who feels the time has come to take a good hard look at the evidence, especially now with the United States experiencing the biggest rash of sightings since the first UFOs were seen back in 1947.
As a scientist, I regard it as extremely urgent, because here is a really unusual problem that is going unattended by the scientific community throughout the world. Apparently the situation is no different in England, Russia. I've been in Australia recently, and I think it's scientifically, well, almost scandalous that we're ignoring this long-standing problem in the way that we in the scientific community have ignored it.
Well, now, what is the attitude of science towards UFOs? I mean, is it beginning to change, or is it still mostly skeptical?
Oh, it's beginning to change, but it is still largely skeptical, and it's quite understandable. They have been assured that the problem has been looked at by official agencies, and it is a problem in which the type of data is less than ideal, to understate it. It's largely reports, subjective reports of witnesses, but, and this is a point I would emphasize after a year-and-a-half study of the problem, when you go to the witnesses in many of these cases, when you sort through, there are so many examples of highly credible witnesses, completely stable people of excellent reputation when you check around a bit, who have seen utterly unconventional objects maneuvering at low or sometimes high altitude, that to regard this as anything but a problem of considerable scientific importance, I think will be to miss something that we've already missed far too long, 20 years.
I don't think you'll ever clear the air to the satisfaction, at least, of the UFO buffs. They want to believe, they're happy believing, let them go on believing. I think it's a great waste of time and money to spend much more time investigating it.
Diametrically opposed to Dr. McDonald's views is Dr. Donald Menzel, astronomer with the Harvard College Observatory at Cambridge, Massachusetts. He has made a personal crusade of debunking UFO sightings.
To go on for year after year, trying to prove whether or not these things come from outer space or not. It's clear that they don't, and I'm quite sure that that will be the result of any investigation.
Yes, I would say particularly now, the time has come to take them seriously for several reasons.
An eminent scientist who at one time agreed with Menzel, but has now changed his mind, is Dr. J. Allen Hynek, head of astronomy at Chicago's Northwestern University.
At one time, I thought that reports were confined largely to the United States, and that we were undergoing some sort of a bizarre nervous reaction. But their reports have come in now from better than 70 countries, and also scientists are beginning to take a closer look, because the sheer force of the sheer weight, I should say, of the numbers of reports is demanding attention. And as you know, the United States government now has finally moved in that direction by the creation of the Condon Committee at the University of Colorado, which is very seriously studying the problem.
The University of Colorado, a sponsor of the Condon Project, is a world-renowned center for the study of all kinds of atmospheric phenomena. Set up in November of last year, the committee was given $313,000 by the U.S. Air Force and 18 months to prepare what the Air Force hopes will be the last word on the subject of UFOs. The job has turned out to be tougher than expected. Consequently, the budget is to be doubled and the time extended to 2 years. World in Action's camera team was the first ever to be allowed to film these scenes of the committee at work in their offices at Woodbury Hall at the university. Among the project's dozen experts are Director Dr. Edward Condon, formerly physicist with the National Bureau of Standards. Project Coordinator Robert Lowe, formerly with the National Center of Atmospheric Research. Dr. Fred Ayer, nuclear physicist and head of the committee's Field Investigation Unit. Investigator Dr. Roy Craig, physical chemist from the University of Colorado. And Mary Lou Armstrong, administrative assistant to Robert Lowe. Most of the committee's time is taken up with checking out UFO reports, where possible in person. Thousands of feet of interviews are taped on current and past sightings. Everyone's great hope is that someday one of the investigators will be lucky enough to see a UFO firsthand.
Well, that's something we worked very hard on. We not only do we want to find out, but we want to find out quickly. So we set up all kinds of elaborate mechanisms to have people notify us quickly. If the sighting looks interesting, we'll send people at any time of the night, and so that's one of the things we work very hard at.
I'd say that the greatest difficulty about getting anything, the thing that seems most frustrating to me as a physicist, one would like to get direct observational material oneself, that is to say photographs or spectrographs, or at least our own people see things. But all of the things that are reported are a very transient duration. They only last for a few minutes, and apparently as many people that do see things get so excited about it that they'll postpone till the next day before they make a report. So that in point of fact, not only have we not ourselves directly seen anything in this effort, but have merely been thereby limited simply to interviewing people. I mean, one does feel frustrated and discouraged at times, but that's not the same as saying that one should give up and quit. There are some very puzzling things that need to be looked into, and we would welcome not only better evidence about them, but also suggestions as to better ways of investigation, how to get there quicker, or how to do this, or how to do that.
Many amateur groups like this one have responded to Condon's appeal for help in chasing down the elusive evidence of UFOs.
Right now I'd like to let you all meet Mr. Bill Donovan from AIR in Poughkeepsie. That's Aerial Investigation Research Organization. Bill?
Thank you, Larry. First, let me say that...
Bill Donovan has no scientific credentials, but spends all his spare time tracking down sightings and filing reports to Condon. In the past year, it has cost him $3,000 of his own money. He has just come across a very unusual sighting made by a local farmer's wife while she was driving her car. The car was damaged and the woman very shaken by the experience.
Now, to reiterate her story in brief, she was traveling home from New Canaan, I believe, or is it Canaan? Canaan, Connecticut, and traveling toward her home in Millerton. So she crossed out of the state of Connecticut into the state of New York. She was only a few minutes from her home. She was traveling north on Route 22. She noticed an object.
Emma Funk reconstructs her strange story on the spot where it happened.
The radio got noisy, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it because it had never bothered me before like that. The further I come, the worse it got. And so I reached down to shut it off, and I had my head down and glancing down to the floor. And I heard a kind of a whizzing noise. And when I looked up, it was right over the radiator in my car. It was coming just though you had it on a string and was pulling it along. That's the way it guided right towards me. I hollered. I took my foot off the gas pedal. The lights went out. The motor stopped. It hit the windshield, went off to the right, and as it glanced at the end of the windshield, the car turned all orange inside and exploded. And all I could think of, my car was blowing up, and that's the last I remember till I was headed back down here. I turned around here somewhere, so I don't know what drive.
What was it like coming down the road at you now? Can you describe that?
Well, when I see it, it was either black or dark blue, and it was fluorescent and had these lights all around it.
Where did it hit the windshield?
Right up in here, right in front of my face.
This is the actual break in the windshield. World in Action asked glass expert John Gray what he thought had caused it.
The glass is broken with line hard object. The radiated lines continued from the center, and just an impact of a hard object.
Do you think it could have been something very hot?
No.
Why do you think that?
I don't think it's hot because there's no fusion or anything that would make it look like it was fused.
How big an object do you think it probably was?
I would say something about 1 inch square or diameter. Stone, rock, or steel.
Have you seen this kind of thing before?
Yes, many times. Very common.
The object came...
Obviously, in Gray's opinion, Emma Funk's car was hit by something far more ordinary than a UFO. However, other details made her experience seem more mysterious than ever. In the opinion of Bill Donovan, her case was definitely worth further investigation.
Bright orange. The headlights went off, the engine failed, and she remembered gripping the steering wheel very tensely, and she passed out. When she came to, 15 minutes later, and this could later be verified, she was down the road 1 mile to the south, facing an opposite direction, and mumbling, "Why did it have to be me? Why did they pick me?"